Hello folks, welcome back to Gelvin Valley. Farming Simulator 15, map made by Wild Wild Wes. You know, we had so much fun cutting a little hay on that high meadow that we're going to do it again. I'm going to take you to another spot on the map that I don't think we've been to before, where we can cut some free hay. We'll just say that the local magistrate of Gelvin Valley likes having the hill free, where they have, I think there is a big antenna up on top of this hill, and they like having it kept free or maintenance up there, if you will. So they appreciate it when someone's willing to go up there, and as the fee, anybody that cuts it up there is allowed to keep the hay. That's the story I have, and I'm sticking to it. Looks like our other fella's following along, which is good. This one here is going to be kind of on the upper north and west end. We do have a field kind of up in that area, but we've never really continued on up the hill. It's, well, like anywhere else in Gelvin Valley, it's incredibly steep up there. And unless you have a good reason to go up there, we just don't go. And it was this hill actually that kind of helped me make a script, if you will, to keep our bales on the hill. You know, it's no big deal. The place where we just cut a little bit ago, or in the previous episode, it's kind of, once you get up top, it's flat. So we're going to just head on around this guy. Isn't it ironic that in the Farm Sim app, the cars drive slower than the tractors? Just one of those things. If I don't watch it out, I'm going to end up in a ditch. But if you start playing this map and you don't have a script, anytime, you know, even on like the hill next to us on the right, anytime you bale on a hill with a round baler, your bales are going to find their way to the bottom of the hill. It's just a matter of time. So I finally got tired of that. I know it's possible it can happen in real life, but sometimes even in steep terrain, the farmers figure out a way to keep them on the hill so they don't just go storming down the hill. You know, that's how you get out of control. That's how things break. That's how lots of bad things happen. And so, to mimic that, I figured we would do something in here so the bales would stay put and they wouldn't just roll down the hill. So I made a script to do that, and it was this hill that we're going to that is kind of where I got the idea. I kind of think there's another, I guess you can drive over there, but it's almost practically a walking trail as we get up in here. I don't know how much Wes would have planned for people to be driving around up here, but it is an area where you can get some free hay, and I guess he just figured if you're going to come up and do it, you're going to work for it. And we're farmers, we're not afraid of hard work. And this, I really don't know. I haven't checked the DEM app for altitude. I don't know if this is higher over here than the other hill we went up. It's possible that it is. I do know the other hill we went up, there was quite a bit of it was just climbing straight out of the valley. This one here is a little more taking it all in one gulp. I'm just looking here. I think we got one more bend and then we'll be near the top. And I'm pretty sure I haven't been up here before. I think when I first started, there was one whole crop cycle where all I did was hay. That's kind of what Wes had in his instructions, and I just didn't make that much money, but I was up here trying to cut every square inch of free grass I could, so Yeah, just to the left. I know I was in here cutting that. And yeah, let me see here. I think the official place to get out into the field is right over here. And you can see those little triangles. I have course plays set up here to handle it all, but I don't know if I'm going to do that or just try to do it freehand, kind of like I did some of the others. My other tractor's putzing, trying to get up here. Yep, there is an antenna of some kind up here. But look at the view. The last stuff we were harvesting was way over in here. This is clear on the upper northeast side. I gotta say the view here is even better. It looks like I say, that this is an intentional, in the map design, a drop off a cliff behind these massive mountains that happens to be the map edge. And I think we'll have it over here too. Although, well, there's a little bit more distance to get to the edge of the map. So it's only flat, just a little bit up on top here. So really, let me just hop to this other tractor. I'm gonna turn him on for the moment, then head back over here. Take that off. We just head out over here a little bit. Maybe I need to... How did I do this before? That's right, it was this right here. I think I want to have a little swing into the right. But this is just treacherously steep. And I mean, just look at that. That'll make you think you're taking your life in your hands. I don't know that anybody in their right mind would come down over a hill like this to cut it unless you happen to be Swiss and you have some equipment designed to do it. But last time I know we kind of cut all down through over here, and I believe we also did some kind of just up on top here. We did kind of around over the side over there. So I don't know what we're doing here. We'll just get started. And I mainly wanted to come up here just to show you kind of some of the other areas that Wes built into the map and are beautiful, but we don't really have opportunity or reason to come up here. Oh, yeah, see, now there is something back up here. See that rock disappear on the horizon? Boom, there it appeared again. Yeah, he put those in down there. Makes me wonder if we need to bump up the clip distance on it just a fuzz more so that we see it up here. Gentlemen, we are cutting. So maybe we'll just take a gander kind of around here and, oh, and you know, if I wasn't an idiot, I would remember that I need to lower my mower. Head on around here. And most of this, like I say, is killing time until our crop grows. We're now heading due south. And just to pause here just for a moment. Look at that. The edge of the map is obviously right here. Well, I say obviously. I don't know that it is so obvious. You know, if you're not paying attention, it still looks pretty good. Although it gets up in over here and you can tell the mesh kind of rises off it. It's just, it's a trick. Mappers have to, you know, to try to fool your eyes, they have to do whatever they can to make the edge as seamless as possible, and it's not something easy to do. So here, that's kind of a cliff right off there. Even though there's more grass, we're not going to venture. Whoa, even as I say this, I'm venturing onto another cliff. I probably have no business trying to cut down here. Boy, oh boy. I'm just going to head down kind of over here. I know I cut this one other time. It's very steep, and we'll just say that we in our tractor with many years experience, have the intestinal fortitude to take on a hill such as this, and we're gonna make ourselves some hay. I kind of think this is where, yeah, see, he's just free rolling. I don't think I went down into that dip over there. So I'm probably already, I probably should have tried to come up above this. Yeah, this is probably, like I say, you look at this and say it's foolhardy to be cutting down in here. And you know, yeah, even our implement is tracking downhill. I'm trying to remember if we went down beyond this tree. We might have cut down into there when I did this before, but we're not going to do that this time. We'll try to, safety will be our top priority here. We'll try to head back up the hill and hope our little tractor gets us there. And right now it's kind of protesting the hill a little bit. But I just saw an old piece of hay, so I know we have been here before cutting hay down that far. I'm going to try to skirt kind of along the edge of these bushes here. Head over to this edge. You know, I'd be curious, anybody looking at this, in all the maps that you have played, are there any that give you kind of a cliff look, if you will, like this one here does, where you are way up high and a mistake could send you hurtling off into the abyss? I'm not aware of many that give you this kind of view. But by the same token, I cut down there last time. It's probably no steeper down here than it was over there. But you know, I don't recall being down there. So I'll tell you what, I'm just gonna cut this off here and we're gonna skirt around these bushes here, I think. We'll continue on here, just making the opening cut. Yeah, I probably could go down over there, but how much hoopla do I want to get myself into here just to cut a few lousy bales? I think because I don't want to totally pinch myself off here and get in a tight spot with the machinery, I'll just kind of head back like so. And we'll almost be done with our first round. But there is no way we could bail up here if we didn't have the script that I put in here to keep those intact. Well, I guess we could, but what it would involve, and maybe this is what the guys do in real life. I mean, I've never been to Switzerland. Maybe, you know, what we could do in here is you could bale something and then you just hold it in your baler, and you got to drive your baler to a flat area, drop the bale, and then head back out, you know, to continue kind of where you left off. So, but maybe that's what they do in real life. And I don't know if looking at this, you know, I think last time, you know, there's that little script I know people see me activate periodically when I take pictures, so I can fly up in the air a little bit to kind of get a different perspective. And I know when I drop myself in there, you know, going to the map surface, I sometimes will feel it in the pit of my stomach. And I'm just curious, when you look at a farming on a hill like this in this map, you know, does that give you, oh, yeah, that's not something we'd want to have happen in real life. Does this give you the willies? Just kind of looking at that, I mean, I'm not one that, well, I wouldn't say I'm afraid of heights, but I don't like being up there, shall we say. maybe you all have no fear of heights, and so this is no big deal, but I'm telling you, this is incredibly steep in here. Yeah, I don't think I've ever worked on a farm that worked ground that was this steep at all. Even though we did have hillside combines, where I worked, it was never on anything, I don't think, this steep. Down on the flat, over where we would have cattle, we did kind of take over the pasture, because since we don't have any cattle at the moment, and we kind of turned it into our own field. We've been harvesting grain in it. I suppose if we really wanted to, we could drag the equipment clear up here. We could plow out the grass. We could put in a field. But we'll just say that this property up here is owned by the local magistrate or the municipality of Gelvin Valley. And while they appreciate people coming up to cut the grass, that is all that they want done with it. They don't want crops planted up here. They don't want anything that could be happening up here to interfere with the transmission of any signals from the antenna over there. So all we're doing here is just doing them a favor and cutting the grass and hauling a little bit of hay off. And I think doing this one here is going to take us a little bit longer than the one that we did on the other side of the valley, way up above where the wool sell point was. And while I'm curious, whatever comments you'll have, I just don't know that it's out there that you'll find a map quite like this one here, with either the views, the change in topography quite like this. Maybe you'll find it, but I don't know that you'll find one where it's this nice cohesive package, if you will, where the map just works. Wes he really did an outstanding job putting all this together, and it's still in my mind one of the top tier maps that was ever made for ArmSim 15. And even as I say that, I acknowledge this is an older game, and I know most people have moved on to ArmSim 22, that being the most recent one. I haven't done a ton in 22, but one of the things I've noticed is the player now has more control in game over things that over map design, shall we say. Whereas in the past, the mapper would place like all the buildings and so forth on a map, or would shape the topography. Now the player has the ability to reshape things, terraform the map, put down any buildings they want, remove other things. I think the mapper still could put things in it, that wouldn't be movable, but anymore, kind of with the placeable system, it's just designed so that the player has more flexibility, more ability to make the playground look the way they want it. Whereas kind of in the old days with ArmSim 15 and some of these that I've been messing about on, it was almost solely up to the mapper how they put everything together in here. And how they went about that, usually dictated whether you had a good map or a poor one. And I still think some of these older ones, the maps had more charm because you get a picture of the mapper's vision of what it was to look like in here, and you can't really change it. I mean, you can cut down trees, you can do a lot of things, but for the most part, you can't change the base fundamentals of the map. Not as much as you can now, in 22. And as a result of that, well, like I say, I probably shouldn't even comment on it because, I haven't done much in 22. But the little I have seen is I almost think map design was better in these older ones than in some of the new. And maybe some of it just is, the modders, the map modders say, well, why should I spend a ton of time fixing something up in here when the player, may just end up changing everything around. Or maybe they have to leave flexibility built in so the player is able to do whatever they want to the map. I don't know. However it is, we find ourselves mowing this high hill here on good old Gelvin Valley. And it does bring back memories, and I don't know how much time is left on our episode here. I started sharing some of those the last episode we had, some of just the around our home here, is my father has accumulated acreage and equipment kind of over the years to do it with his own cattle, make his own hay. Used to be years ago, before he had that stuff, we would just get it from another local farmer. I have many memories of climbing into other people's hay mows, hauling bales out, stacking them by hand on Dad's trailer or in his pickup, where we took multiple loads. And then when we got to home, we had to do the same thing in reverse, take them all out and stack them. And there's nothing quite like haying, with those old small bales, to get you that kind of exercise. And my trouble always was dealing with allergies to grass and inhaling all that stuff, because you're huffing and puffing. It's good exercise, but then in the process you're inhaling a whole field full of all sorts of pollen and grass and weeds and whatever other corruptions in there. So he has a few tools to help himself now, but most of it is in the making of the hay, the cutting, the raking together, and the baling. It's all mechanized. And the hauling, I guess, is kind of mechanized. It's a pickup truck with a trailer. In the old days, I remember they had this attachment you could put on a trailer where you put it to the side and it would lift bales from the field kind of onto the trailer. And so someone would ride on the trailer and the bales would come up, and it required, the driver then of the pickup had to pay attention and steer to wherever the bales were so they could be picked up. But you could do it with fewer people to load a full-on trailer. It got a little ticklish, once the trailer was full, to get that last couple bales, up there and tied into the stack. But we don't have that. That's probably the one piece of equipment that I'd like to have. I wish my dad would get from when we do the hay around here. But otherwise, we just do it the old-fashioned way, lifting it off the ground, putting it into the trailer, and many times it's over our head. We get all that rain down our neck. Just good old-fashioned fun. What can I say? And it was that way for many years on Lone Oak, kind of where I worked, when I was in tail end of middle school and high school. And it was kind of just something we did every summer. They ran a fair number of cattle up there also. And so the first part of the summer was, week and a half in there was dedicated to putting up hay for the winter. Generally, it was just one cutting. They had a couple fields down by their pond that were kept in grass. Occasionally, they would put a crop in there. I remember at least once we had a field of oats down there, and they cut those for hay. But mainly it was grass, small bales, and they had it was a John Deere small baler, and they put this, we called it a bale accumulator on the end. I kind of think it was a farmhand bale accumulator. And actually, I just remembered, I did look it up on the internet. Maybe I'll just hop out real quick and aha, here it is. Yeah, here's the accumulator. Oh, I'm glad I remembered I just brought this up. So this isn't a picture of theirs, but this is the back end of a baler. The bales come out here, and so they would kind of come out in a straight line, and this is just big enough to fit two of the small bales end to end. And as it would come out, it would push these would keep the bales pressed down onto the platform here. The bales would eventually push this rod to the end, and when it was fully at the end extended, then it must have triggered some hydraulic mechanism. This bar over here would push to the side. You can kind of see the rails where it moves. So it would take both of those bales and wham, it was pretty quick, would shove them over. And then boom, it would come back just as fast because the bales continued to come. And so 2 bales over, and eventually when it was full, you had 8 bales in here. So eventually you would have 3 rows of 2 bales here. And the far row would generally push over the top of this lever here, which initially didn't do anything. But I think when this was depressed and when this lever here was all the way back, when both of them were there, then I think it triggered another routine in the hydraulics. First off, this didn't kick over at the end. But yeah, once it got to here and you had 3 rows over here and you had a 4th over here, you had 8 bales. So this would be down, that would be down. Then what would happen is this chain would go and it would just carry all the bales off. I think somewhere on here, you don't see it, but there was some flat iron between here, maybe all the way out to here. And it would just come against those bales, maybe even wider. I don't know how wide it was. It was wide enough to catch all of the bales, and it would take all 8 of them and deposit them on the ground, somewhat in a pad. We call them pads, kind of like this. This looks very similar. And then you had, for your front end loader, you had a bale accumulator pickup, and it has, again, it's hydraulically driven. And it had all these hooks in it, so the driver, and it also had this guide. You would push into it and kind of form it to get it all tight as you could, and set it down flat, and then hit a lever, and it would pick. These hooks would curl into the bales, and then you could pick up the entire pad at once. And we would go stack them just on a regular old grain truck. And I wouldn't say it was a best stack job, but it was good enough. We would stack it differently if we were doing it by hand. But when they did it by machine, most of them would come in from the sideways. Occasionally on the ends, they would crisscross them a little bit to kind of tie the load in. But sure was better than loading them all by hand. So I don't know if the farming sim world has ever had a tool quite like that. Maybe in the newer version, or perhaps in... maybe in the version after this. Does anybody remember the was it the straw DLC that they had? That might have had something that accumulated a few bales in a spot, and then I think there was equipment maybe to pick them up. I don't remember exactly on that. I'm just trying to go from memory. I thought that there was something, and who knows what they have on Farm Sim 22. Maybe that's something you all could say as to what bale handling equipment's out there now. That's kind of what we used on the farm, and it was pretty handy, but still, we would get them stacked onto the trailer, and we didn't have very far to go. The fields were just below the barn, and some of it we, kind of like if you've been on the Lone Oak app, you kind of know what I mean when I say the barn, the old red barn. Some of the hay would go in the air periodically because there was horses kind of up at the house they had periodically. But the rest of the cattle were down in a canyon. It was probably a mile, maybe 2 to the west, just over gravel roads going down in a canyon. They had some sheds down there. And there was a larger one, and that's kind of where it was stored for winter. We'd simply back the truck up in the air, and we would start offloading everything by hand. And yeah, in those days, we just stacked it all in there by hand, and then during the winter, someone was back there periodically shoving bales to the cattle, so they had something to eat all winter long. So it's probably primarily those two locations we would take bales to. And I know they did some for a neighbor too. It's just part of the thing they had to do for their lease. So there was, we not only did hay down below the main buildings of Lone Oak, but we also did a little bit to the west and north, I guess it is, kind of on that neighbor's property, just to help him maintenance. There's all kinds of things a farmer does when you have a lease, and I suppose it's like any industry. You know, they talk about having loss leaders or having something for a discount because it's other business that you're interested in, and farming is no different. They were interested in leasing this neighbor's cropland. That's really what they were after. But in order to do the cropland, they also had to take care of this guy's pasture area. They had to do some hay for him and some of those kinds of things. And I don't think we have any arrangement quite like that here on Gelvin Valley, other than this one here. If we cut the hay up top here, we get to keep it. So says the local magistrate. Well, we just had our timer go off, so I know another half hour has elapsed and gone. So I think I'm going to call the episode there. And I do thank you for coming along for the ride and listening to me dribble along here as we try to farm and make some money here in Gelvin Valley. It seems like we're perpetually underwater with our cash, but I have hopes that one day we'll be north by a long shot as we continue to add real estate and work away on our little farm here. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you on the next one.